The question was simple, just 3 words. But the moment she asked it, the entire room seemed to fall silent. He hadn't expected it. Not here. Not from her. For a brief second, Daniel Carter simply stood there holding his small daughter's hand, feeling as if time had paused between one heartbeat and the next. The fluorescent lights of the hospital waiting room hummed softly above them. People walked past with hurried footsteps. And somewhere in the distance, a monitor beeped steadily. Yet for Daniel, everything faded except the young woman standing in front of him, waiting for an answer. She looked nervous, almost as if she regretted asking the question the moment it left her lips. And Daniel knew that whatever he said next would somehow change everything. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of ordinary people, take a moment right now to like the video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Kind Soul Stories for more heartfelt stories like this. Daniel's life had never been simple. 5 years earlier, he had been a different man entirely, a man with plans, dreams, and a future that seemed carefully mapped out. He had a steady job as a mechanic, a modest house on the edge of town, and a wife named Rebecca, who used to laugh easily and talk about all the places they would visit someday. Then life had changed in a single night. Rebecca died in a car accident on a rain-soaked highway, leaving Daniel alone with their newborn daughter, Lily. At 28 years old, Daniel suddenly found himself facing a life he had never imagined. Sleepless nights, endless diapers, doctor visits, daycare bills, and the quiet, aching loneliness that filled the spaces Rebecca once occupied. There were days when Daniel felt like he was barely holding everything together. But every morning, Lily would smile at him with the kind of pure joy only children possess. And somehow that small smile would give him enough strength to face another day. Lily became the center of his world. He worked longer hours than ever before, fixing cars at a small garage owned by an older man named Frank, who understood Daniel's situation. Frank often let him bring Lily to the shop when daycare fell through, and the little girl would sit on an overturned bucket, happily playing with toy cars while Daniel worked under the hood of someone's pickup truck. Money was always tight. Life was always busy. But there was love in their small home. The quiet, steady kind that grows stronger through struggle. Years passed like this. Daniel didn't date. He didn't have the time or the emotional energy to think about relationships. His entire focus remained on raising Lily the best way he knew how. Then one winter evening, Lily got sick. It started as a mild cough and a slight fever. Daniel assumed it was just a cold, something kids get all the time. But by the next morning, her breathing had become labored and her fever had climbed dangerously high. Fear gripped Daniel in a way he hadn't felt since the night he lost Rebecca. He rushed Lily to the nearest hospital, his heart pounding as he carried her through the emergency entrance. Hours passed in the waiting room. Tests were done. Nurses moved in and out. Doctors spoke in calm, professional voices that did little to ease Daniel's anxiety. Finally, they told him Lily had a severe respiratory infection, but would recover with proper treatment. Relief washed over Daniel so strongly that he nearly collapsed into the chair beside her hospital bed. That was where he first noticed her, the young woman sitting across the room. She had been there for hours, too, quietly reading a book beside an elderly woman who appeared to be her mother. Occasionally, she would glance up, her eyes drifting toward Daniel and Lily. There was something about her expression, a mix of gentleness and quiet sadness. Later that evening, when Lily finally fell asleep, Daniel stepped into the hallway to stretch his legs. That was when the young woman approached him. Up close, He noticed the faint tiredness in her eyes, the kind that suggested life hadn't been easy for her either. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she asked the question, "Are you married?" Daniel hesitated, not because he didn't know the answer, but because the truth carried memories that still hurt. He finally shook his head slowly. "No," he said softly. "My wife passed away 5 years ago." The young woman's expression immediately changed. There was no pity in her eyes, only understanding. She nodded gently. "My father passed away 2 years ago," she said. "It changes everything when someone you love disappears like that." Daniel found himself nodding. They stood in silence for a moment, two strangers connected by invisible threads of loss. Her name was Emma. Over the next few days, as Lily recovered, Daniel and Emma crossed paths many times in the hospital corridors. Their conversations were never long, but each one felt strangely comfortable. Emma visited her mother every day, bringing fresh flowers and books to read aloud. Daniel watched the way she cared for her mother with patience and warmth. It reminded him of something he thought he had lost forever. The quiet presence of kindness in everyday life. On the day Lily was discharged, Emma happened to be in the lobby. Lily, now energetic again, held Daniel's hand while clutching a stuffed rabbit the hospital had given her. Before leaving, Daniel walked over to Emma. He wasn't sure why. Maybe it was gratitude. Maybe curiosity. Maybe something deeper he didn't yet understand. They talked briefly. Emma smiled when Lily showed her the rabbit. Then Daniel did something he hadn't done in years. He asked if she would like to have coffee sometime. Emma hesitated for only a moment before agreeing. That coffee turned into a long conversation. That conversation turned into another meeting the following week. Slowly, cautiously, Daniel allowed someone new into his life. It wasn't easy. Grief doesn't disappear just because time passes. There were moments when Daniel felt guilty for smiling again, for enjoying Emma's company. But Emma never pushed him. She understood the weight he carried. She also saw the incredible father he was to Lily and Lily. Lily adored Emma almost immediately. The little girl would run to greet her with excited hugs whenever Emma visited their small house. For the first time in years, Daniel's home began to feel different. Warmer, fuller, alive again. Yet Daniel still carried fear inside him. The fear of losing someone again. The fear that happiness might once again disappear without warning. One evening, months later, as Daniel and Emma sat on the small porch watching Lily chase fireflies in the yard, Emma turned to him with a thoughtful expression. She asked him the same question again. "Are you married?" Daniel looked at her confused at first. Then he understood. She wasn't asking about the past. She was asking about the future. Daniel watched Lily laughing in the fading summer light. Then he looked back at Emma, the woman who had quietly stepped into their lives and filled empty spaces with kindness. His answer came from the deepest place in his heart. "No," he said softly. "But I'm raising a daughter who deserves to grow up seeing what love looks like. And if you're willing to be part of our messy, imperfect life, then maybe someday I will be." Emma's eyes filled with tears. Not sad tears, the kind that come when something beautiful finally begins. Years later, people in their town would often say that Daniel Carter was one of the luckiest men they knew. Not because life had been easy for him, but because he had learned something many people never do. That sometimes the most important moments in life begin with the simplest questions. Before this story ends, there's one special request. Comment the word hope if you believe that even after the hardest losses, life can still surprise us with beautiful new beginnings. Daniel's life didn't become perfect overnight. There were still struggles, difficult days, and moments of doubt. But now, he didn't face them alone, and neither did Lily. Emma became a steady presence in their lives. Someone who brought patience, laughter, and warmth into their small home. Years later, when Lily would look back on her childhood, she wouldn't remember the pain that once shadowed her father's life. She would remember fireflies in the backyard, bedtime stories, family dinners filled with laughter. And the day a simple question in a quiet hospital changed everything. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to Kind Soul Stories for more emotional stories about love, resilience, and second chances. Because sometimes the smallest moments create the biggest changes in our lives.